So the story that Daryl just read is one of my favorite stories in all of Scripture because it reminds me just how human and relatable the followers of Jesus can be. The disciples hung out with Jesus day in and day out for 3 years, which means they saw incredible miracles that Jesus performed, unbelievable examples of God's power. You would think then that the disciples would be ready for anything that life had to throw at them. And yet, they still got afraid when the storms come. They still had doubts and fears about the future. They were still anxious in the boat during the storm. You would think that the disciples, being so close to Jesus, would be ready to weather any storm. But that's what makes them so relatable. Because despite seeing these incredible miracles before, they're afraid when the rains come. And I realize that I do the same thing in my own life. Like, I've had these incredible mountaintop experiences with God. Times in my life where I'm living out of His abundance and the presence of God in me is so thick and real and tangible, and I know that God can do anything. Where my future is certain, not known, but certain. Where I know that it's going to be okay. And then the season changes. I start to look on the horizon and I see storm clouds starting to roll in. And somehow I forget those mountaintop experiences that I've had with God. I start to transition back to this fear of scarcity, asking myself this question: what if there's not going to be enough, God? Like, I was fine back then, but am I going to be fine now? What am I going to do when that life storm hits? Am I going to be okay? In a similar story to the one that was just read, Jesus is asleep in the boat when the storm comes. And these disciples, who were fishermen by trade, who know a few things about the ability to navigate a boat in a storm, are afraid for their life. The storm is that bad. It's like if the airline pilot started being scared mid-flight. Time to get worried. And so they wake up Jesus and they say, "Jesus, we're perishing, don't you care?" And they watch as Jesus scolds the storm into silence. This is a fun moment in the story because I like to imagine that all of the fear that the disciples had about the storm moved from the storm instantly to the person that was able to calm it. Whoa. Who is this man that has the power to calm the storm? A couple of weeks ago, if you were in our Wednesday night Bible study, I admitted to you that I have an irrational fear of bad weather. There's just something about storms that make me feel really small. And reminds me just how out of control nature can be. The recent storms that have hit the East Coast are a reminder to us, guys, that we really don't have any control over nature. There is just something about the size and the power of a great storm that bothers me. And even when I was looking up pictures for this sermon, these pictures were bothering me. How powerful nature can be. How much more powerful then is the one that can calm it, that can command it into silence. You would think that once the disciples saw that, it was over. That's all I need to see. Because with this guy, we can do anything. Bring it on, Caesar. Bring it on, Roman guards, Pharisees, people who want to stone us. The revolution is coming because if he can do that, he can do anything. If God be for us, then who can be against us? As long as Jesus is in the boat with us, we're going to be okay. As long as Jesus is sitting next to me on that plane, I don't think this plane is going down.